Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Tesla's first quarter 2025 Q&A webcast. My name is Travis Axelrod, Head of Investor Relations, and I'm joined today by Elon Musk, Dev Ateneja, and other executives. Our Q1 results were announced at about 3 p.m. Central Time in the update deck being published at the same link as this webcast. During this call, we will discuss our business outlook and make forward-looking statements. These comments are based on our predictions and expectations. Actual events or results could differ materially due to a number of risks and uncertainties, including those mentioned in our most recent filings with the SEC. During the question and answer portion of today's call, please limit yourself to one question and one follow-up. Please use the raise hand button to join the question queue. Before we jump into Q&A, Elon will be providing an update. Elon?
Hello, everyone. It's never a dull moment these days. Every day is going to be exciting. As people know, there's been some blowback for the time that I've been spending with the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE. I think the work that we're doing there is actually very important to rein in the insane deficit that is leading our country, the United States, to destruction. The DOGE team has made a lot of progress in addressing waste and fraud. The natural blowback from that is those who were receiving the wasteful dollars and the fraudulent dollars will try to attack me and DOGE team and anything associated with me. But then I'm really left with two choices. Should we just let the waste and fraud continue? And it was continuing to grow at a really unsustainable pace that was bankrupting the country, or to fight the waste and fraud and try to get the country back on the right track. I believe the right thing to do is to fight the waste and fraud and get the country back on the right track, working together with President Trump and his administration. Because if the ship of America goes down, we all go down with it, including Tesla and everyone else. So I think this is critical work. Now, the protests that you'll see out there, they're very organized, they're paid for. They're obviously not going to admit that the reason they're protesting is because they're receiving fraudulent money, or that they're the recipients of wasteful largesse, but they're going to come up with some other reason. But that is the real reason for the protests. The actual reason is that those receiving the waste and fraud wish to continue receiving it. That is the real thing that's going on here, obviously. Now, that said, I do think there's the large slug of work necessary to get the DOGE team in place and working in the government to get the financial house in order is mostly done. I think starting probably in next month, in May, my time allocation to DOGE will drop significantly. I'll have to continue doing it for the remainder of the president's term, just to make sure that the waste and fraud that we stop does not come roaring back, which we'll do if it has the chance. I think I'll continue to spend a day or two per week on government matters for as long as the president would like me to do, and as long as it is useful. Starting next month, I'll be allocating far more of my time to Tesla, now that the major work of establishing the Department of Government Efficiency is done. So at Tesla, we've gone through many a crisis over the years, and actually been through many near-death experiences. We're probably on the ragged edge of death at least a dozen times. It's been so many times. This is not one of those times. We're not on the ragged edge of death, not even close. There are some challenges. I expect some unexpected bumps this year, but I remain extremely optimistic about the future of the company. The future is fundamentally based on large-scale autonomous cars and vast numbers of autonomous humanoid robots. The value of a company that makes truly useful autonomous humanoid robots and autonomous useful vehicles at scale, at low cost, which is what Tesla's going to do, is staggering. I continue to believe that Tesla, with excellent execution, will be the most valuable company in the world by far. So that's an important if. We must execute well. But if we do execute well, I think Tesla will be the most valuable company in the world by far. it may be as valuable as the next 5 companies combined. But there'll be a few bumps along the road before that happens. I said in the last earnings call that we'll start to see the prosperity of autonomy take effect in a material way around the middle of next year. We still expect to be selling fully autonomous rides in June in Austin, as we've been saying for several months. So that's continued. But the real question from a financial standpoint is, when does it really become material and affect the bottom line of the company? When does it move the financial needle in a significant way? That's probably around the middle of next year. Once it does start to move the financial needle in a significant way, it will really go exponential from there. I'd encourage people to look beyond the bumps and potholes immediately ahead of us. Lift your gaze to the bright, shining citadel on a hill, some Reagan-esque imagery. That's where we're headed. And not too distant future, like I said, end of next year, technically. With respect to supply chain risk, it's something that Tesla has been working on for several years, is to localize supply chains. This actually makes sense from a cost standpoint and from a logistics risk standpoint, to have the supply chains be at least located on the continent in which the car is built. And so we are, I think, the least affected car company with respect to tariffs, at least in most respects. The tariffs are still tough on a company when margins are low, but we do have localized supply chains in America, Europe, and China. So that puts us in a stronger position than any of our competitors. And undoubtedly, I'm going to get a lot of questions about tariffs. And I want to emphasize that the tariff decision is entirely up to the President of the United States. I will weigh in with my advice, but then it's up to him to make his decision. I've been on the record many times as saying that I believe lower tariffs are generally a good idea for prosperity, but this decision is fundamentally up to the elected representative of the people, being the President of the United States. I'll continue to advocate for lower tariffs rather than higher tariffs. That's all I can do. Now, let me walk you through why I'm so excited about the future of Tesla. First of all, autonomy. The team and I are laser focused on bringing robo-taxi to Austin. Unsupervised autonomy will first be solved for the Model Y. We should parse out the terms robotic taxi or robo-taxi and just generally the Cybercab, because we've got a product called the Cybercab. Any Tesla, which could be an S3, X, or Y that is autonomous, is a robotic taxi. The vast majority of the Tesla fleet we've made is capable of being a robotic taxi. Once we can make the system work where you can have paid rides fully autonomously with no one in the car in one city, that is a very scalable thing for us to go broadly within whatever jurisdiction allows us to operate. Because what we're solving for is a general solution to autonomy, not a city-specific solution. Once we make it work in a few cities, we can make it work in all cities in that legal jurisdiction. So if we can make it work in a few cities in America, we can make it work anywhere in America. Once we can make it work in a few cities in China, we can make it work anywhere in China, likewise in Europe, limited only by regulatory approvals. This is the advantage of having a generalized solution using artificial intelligence and an AI chip that Tesla designed specifically for this purpose, as opposed to very expensive sensors and high precision maps of a particular neighborhood where that neighborhood may change or often changes, and then the cost stops working. So we have a general solution instead of a specific solution. Yeah. Then with regard to Optimus, we're making good progress on Optimus. We expect to have thousands of Optimus robots working in Tesla factories by the end of this year, doing useful work. And we expect to scale Optimus up faster than any product, I think, in history, to get to millions of units per year as soon as possible. I think feel confident in getting to 1 million units per year in less than 5 years, maybe 4 years. So by 2030, I feel confident in predicting 1 million Optimus units per year. It might be 2029. Let's see, with respect to energy, our energy business is doing very well. The Megapack enables utility companies to output far more total energy than would otherwise be the case. When you think of the energy capability of a grid, it's much more than the total energy output per year. If the power plants could operate at peak power for all 24 hours, as opposed to being at half power, sometimes a quarter power at night, then you could double the energy output of existing power plants. But in order to do that, you need to buffer the energy so that you can charge up something like battery pack at night and then discharge into the grid during the day. So this is a massive unlock on total energy output of any given grid over the course of a year. Utility companies are beginning to realize this and are buying our megapacks at scale. At this point, a gigawatt class battery is quite a common thing. So we have many orders in the hopper for gigawatt and beyond batteries. And we expect the stationary energy storage business to scale ultimately to terawatts per year. So very good numbers. First quarters of a year are usually pretty tricky because it's often the worst quarter of the year because people don't want to go buy a car in the middle of winter during a blizzard. We picked Q1 as a good quarter to do a cutover to the new version of the Model Y. We changed production of the world's best-selling cars. Remembering, the Model Y is the best-selling car of any kind on Earth with a 1.1 billion unit per year output. And we did this changeover at the same time in factories all across the world. Congratulations to the Tesla team on an amazing job. What is a very difficult transition. So yeah, it's really, that was very impressive work. So yeah. In conclusion, while there are many near-term headwinds for us and the broader industry, the future for Tesla is brighter than ever. The value of the company is delivering sustainable abundance with our affordable AI-powered robots. So this I like this phrase, sustainable abundance for all. If you said, what's the ideal future? That's what you'd want. You'd want abundance for all in a way that's sustainable, it's good for the environment. Basically, this is the happy future. It's the happiest future you could imagine. One which is, that would be a future where there's sustainable abundance for all. Closest thing to heaven we can get on Earth. So thank you again to the Tesla team for all their efforts at this challenging time. I look forward to continuing to lead the team to great success in the future.
Thank you very much, Elon. Before we move on, Vaibhav has some opening remarks as well.
Thanks, Elon. As Elon mentioned, in Q1, we achieved something which has never been undertaken in the automotive industry of updating all our factories for the best-selling car in the world at the same time. And this people don't understand, this was not a small feat. We're not aware of anybody else being able to do the best-selling car all at once within a quarter and hitting all the timelines we had established. Kudos to the team for making this happen. Additionally, we also hit a record gross profit for energy storage business in the quarter. Now, getting back into the business, there's been a lot of speculation as to the reasons for decline of our vehicle deliveries in the first quarter. We had previously guided that we will be updating all factories, and this would lead to several weeks of lost production, which did happen as planned. The ripple effect of the change is not having enough new Model Y available in most markets for people to see and experience till the last few weeks of the quarter. Additionally, the negative impact of vandalism and unwarranted hostility towards our brand and our people had an impact in certain markets. Despite this, we were able to sell out legacy Model Y in US, China, and a few other markets. We were producing the legacy Model Y till middle to end of February, and we were able to still sell out within that period. So again, big achievement by all the people at Tesla to make it happen. We've been extremely competitive with most vehicles going through a recent update. And add to that advances in FSD. You have a personal chauffeur which can take you almost anywhere under supervision. There are numerous stories shared by customers ranging from how it has improved their daily commute, to providing mobility to customers with disabilities, to giving older customers the ability to travel comfortably and independently. Not only is FSD supervised safer than a human driver, but it is also improving the lives of individuals who experience it. This is something you have to experience, and anybody who has experienced just knows it. And we've been doing a lot lately to try and get those stories out, at least on X, so that people can see how other people have benefited from this. Now, coming into some of the financial stuff, auto margins declined sequentially, primarily due to the total number of deliveries, lower fixed cost absorption due to factory changeovers, and lower regulatory credit revenues, offset by a slight increase in pricing due to the launch of new Model Y, despite incentives which we had to sell legacy Model Y. Our energy storage business, like I said before, has achieved yet another milestone of great highest gross profit in the quarter. This was despite sequential decline in deployments. The importance of this business is pretty profound, especially in this environment, because if in order for grids to work properly with the demands from AI and all this, you need some more stability. This is by far the simplest and best solution which we are aware of, which can help do this. And we've also developed certain unique solutions to help our customers. Additionally, on the Powerwall side, we've been selling the new Powerwall 3, and it's been received with very good reception from customers, and to the extent that we are currently supply constrained. On services and other margins, they were slightly down sequentially, primarily because of the pressure on our used car business and insurance business. Note that we continued our journey to improve profitability in our services and collision business through better labor productivity. Our operating expenses continued to increase sequentially, primarily due to our AI-related initiatives, including Optimus, and also cost of development for vehicle programs, including CyberCab, Semi, and cheaper models. These expenses flow through R&D. We believe, even in the current environment, it is the right strategy in making investments in these areas to position us for the long term. These increases were offset by decreases from changes in our vehicle referral program. Other income reduced significantly on a sequential basis. The primary reason was Bitcoin mark-to-market loss in Q1 versus gain in Q4, resulting in a 472 million drop. The remainder of the change is because of FX remeasurement. With the adoption of the new mark-to-market standard for Bitcoin, we expect increased volatility in other income in addition to the FX volatility. I know tariffs is the hottest topic which people talk about, and it has various impacts to our business. As Elon mentioned, on the vehicle business, we've been on this journey of regionalization for years. Specifically in the US, the most American model made car on Cars.com Made in America Index 3 years in a row. This in part is of all the work which the team has been doing over the years. And to the extent that today, if you look at our vehicle lineup in US, we're about approximately on a weighted average basis, 85% USMCA compliant. So like Elon said, this gives us a bigger edge compared to other OEMs in terms of managing the tariffs, but we're not immune, because when the Section 232 auto tariffs become effective in May, which includes Canada and Mexico, and Canada and Mexico has been part of our regionalization strategy, they will have an impact to our profitability. And I know research modeling on this impact has been about a couple of thousand, which is pretty much in line with what we've been forecasting. The impact of tariffs on the energy business will be outsized since we source LFP battery cells from China. We're in the process of commissioning equipment for the local manufacturing of LFP battery cells in the US. However, the equipment we have can only service a fraction of our total installed capacity. We've been working on securing additional supply chain from non-China based suppliers, but it will take time. Also note that Megafact, irrespective of all the impact on US from tariffs on the energy business, we do have Megafactory China, which just started operations in Q1, and that should take care of our business outside of US. There's also an important impact of tariffs on our capital investments. I know this is going to sound counterintuitive, since in order to onshore manufacturing or expand lines, we have to bring equipment from outside the US because there is not that much capacity in the US. And the current trade environment, such equipment being brought in is subject to
the expense of bringing it in from China right now.
Exactly. China has the most capacity to provide this equipment. Our capex guidance, inclusive of tariffs, even with the optimization, it is forecasted to be still in excess of 10 billion this year. And we're still evaluating what more to do on this. To summarize, we have near-term challenges in our business due to tariffs and brand image. We think our strategy of providing the best product at a competitive price is going to be a winner. And this is the reason we focus on bringing cheaper models to market soon. The start of production is still planned for June. Additionally, the advancement in FSD-related features, including pilot robo-taxi launch in Austin later this year, should help create a new era of demand. I would like to thank everyone at Tesla and our customers.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Vaibhav. And now we will move on to investor questions. We will start with questions from say.com. First question is, what are the highest risk items on the critical path to robo-taxi launch and scaling?
It is Ashok.
Yeah, we've got Ashok on.
Just to disambiguate the SUPERCUT from robo-taxi once again. The Teslas that will be fully autonomous in June in Austin will be Model Ys. So that's currently on track to be able to do paid rides fully autonomously in Austin, to be in other cities in the US by the end of this year. It's difficult to predict the exact ramp week by week, month by month, except that it will ramp up very quickly. So it's going to be like basically an S-curve, where it's very difficult to predict the intermediate slope of the S-curve, but you know where the S-curve is going to end up, which is the vast majority of the Tesla fleet being autonomous. So that's why I feel confident in predicting large-scale autonomy around the middle of next year, certainly the second half of next year, meaning there will be millions of Teslas operating fully autonomously in the second half of next year. It does seem increasingly likely that there will be a localized parameter set, especially for places that have, say, very snowy weather. Say if you're in the Northeast, you can think of it, it's kind of like a human. If you could be a very good driver in California, are you also a good driver in a blizzard in Manhattan? You're not going to be as good. So there is some value in having a localized set of parameters for different regions. But I put that in the nice to have category. It's not the required category. Again, really the car is just very much like a human. It's digital neural nets and cameras, and humans operate with biological neural nets and eyes. And so the same strengths and weaknesses will be present for a digital neural net and cameras versus a biological neural net and eyes.
Speaking to the location-specific models, we still have a generalized approach in our deployment of FSD supervised in China, where with this very minimal data that's like China-specific, the models generalize quite well to completely different driving styles. That just shows that the solution we have is the right one. If we had gone down the previous rule-based solutions or more hard-coded HD map-based solutions, it would have taken many years to get China to work. You can see those in the videos that people post online themselves. The generalized solution we are pursuing is the right one that's going to scale well. You can think of this like location-specific parameters, a mixture of experts. If you're familiar with AI models, they all use this mixture of experts to specialize the parameters to specific tasks while still being general. This makes the model use limited amount of compute to solve for the diversity of tasks it has to solve. One thing I would like to note is validation. Self-driving is a long-tail problem where there can be a lot of edge cases that only happen very rarely. Currently, we are driving around in Austin using our QA fleet, but then it's super rare to get interventions that are critical for robo-taxi operation. And so you can go many days without getting a single intervention. So you can't easily know whether you're improving or regressing in your capacity. And we need to build out sophisticated simulations, including neural network-based video generation. That's all happening in the background to make sure that we deliver a safe product and we are able to measure our safety, even though we can't just see it driving around the block or something like that.
Yeah, in very basic terms, if we're seeing an accident every 10,000 miles, then you have to drive 10,000 miles on average before you get an accident or an intervention. We must be really worked out by the sheer number of Teslas in Austin right now. It's looking pretty bizarre.
Some people are chasing us away. Right?
There's just always a convoy of Teslas going all over to Austin in circles. I just can't emphasize this enough. In order to figure out these long-tail things, if it's 1 in 10,000, 1 in 20,000 miles, or 1 in 30, the average person drives 10,000 miles in a year. So now try to compress that test cycle into a matter of a few months. That means you need a lot of cars doing a lot of driving in a month, what would normally take a year.
If you haven't looked at those videos coming out of China, people are putting it to real test.
I think the Chinese consumer might be the most demanding consumer. Customers in China are awesome. They have a lot of fun with the cars. I saw one guy take a Tesla on autonomous on a narrow dirt road.
Yes.
Across like a mountain, and I'm like, still a very brave person. And the Tesla's driving along on a road with no barriers, where if he makes a mistake, he's going to plunge to his doom. But it worked.
Great, thank you.
And if the question was on SuperCut itself, we're in B sample validation now. We have our first big builds coming at the end of this quarter, in Q2, and the coming months, we'll start to large scale installation of all the equipment in Giga Texas. We're still on schedule for production next year.
Yeah, and I just want to also clarify, because I think people don't understand. They think that there is no new building being built, and where is SuperCut going to
Oh,
be?
it's
within the same factory.
Yeah.
It's happening. People don't know it's happening upstairs and all along the lines while we're still building the Model Ys and Cybertrucks every day.
It's worth noting that the Tesla Gigafactory in Austin is 3 times the size of the Pentagon.
Including the garden. Yeah.
The next question is, when will FSD unsupervised be available for personal use on personally owned cars?
Before the end of this year. Not necessarily within the US. We do want to test. At Tesla, we're absolutely hardcore about safety. We go to great lengths to make the safest car in the world and have the lowest accidents per mile. We want autonomy to be definitively safer than manual driving. It's not enough that it just be as safe. It needs to be meaningfully safer than cars manually driven. And we want to confirm that there's not something. We just want to be cautious with the rollout. We don't want to jump in at the deep end with an army. That said, I think people should be able to have it work in several cities later this year for personal use. You should be able to go to sleep in your car and wake up at your destination. I'm confident that will be available in many cities in the US by the end of this year.
Great, thank you very much. The next question is Tesla still on track for releasing more affordable models this year? Or will you be focusing on simplified versions to enhance affordability, similar to the rear-wheel drive Cybertruck?
Yeah, we're still planning to release models this year. As with all launches, we're working through the last-minute issues that pop up. We're knocking them down one by one. At this point, I would say that ramp might be a little slower than hoped initially, but there's nothing, just given that turmoil that exists in the industry right now, but there's nothing blocking us from starting production within the next timeline. It's important to emphasize that, as we've said all along, the full utilization of our factories is the primary goal for these new products. The flexibility of what we can do within the form factor, the design of it is really limited to what we can do on our existing lines rather than building new ones. But we've been targeting the low cost of ownership. Monthly payment is the biggest differentiator for our vehicles. And that's why we're focused on bringing these new models with the lowest price. to the market within the constraints I just highlighted.
Great. Thank you very much. The next question is, does Tesla see robo-taxi as a winner-take-most market? And as you approach the Austin launch, how do you expect to compare against Waymo's offering, especially regarding pricing, geofencing, and regulatory flexibility?
The issue with Waymo's cars is they cost way more money. But that is the issue. The cars are very expensive, made in low volume. Teslas are, I don't know, probably cost a quarter or 20% of what a Waymo costs, and made in very high volume. Ironically, we're the ones that made the bet that a pure AI solution with cameras, the car actually will listen for sirens and that kind of thing, is the right move. And Waymo decided that an expensive sensor suite was the way to go, even though Google's very good at AI. It's ironic. And it is worth noting that Tesla's built an incredible AI software team and AI hardware chip design team from scratch, from nothing. We didn't acquire anyone. We just built it. Yeah, it's really, I don't see anyone being able to compete with Tesla at present. And I'm sure that'll change eventually. But at least as far as I'm aware, Tesla will have 99% market share or something ridiculous. 90-something percent? At least if we have millions of cars deployed next year, and unless others have millions of cars deployed, like they'll have, unless we're blocked by regulatory situations, it won't be long. In a few years, we'll have 10 million autonomous cars on the roads and counting.
The other thing people forget is we're not just developing the software solution, we are also manufacturing the cars.
Yeah.
And you know what, like Waymo has, they're taking cars and then trying to put
way more money.
We don't do that. We already have a big existing fleet, which hopefully with the software update could become autonomous.
It will become autonomous. Yeah. To be clear, the Model Y that we're talking about being autonomous in Austin in June are the Model Ys we make currently. There's no change to it.
I think people don't appreciate that the car which they can buy today,
The car that they have.
or the car they have, is capable of
Yeah.
these kind of things.
In fact, it does drive autonomously from the factory to the end of line, every car
Yeah.
nowadays.
So
In
there's
the
that
US.
truck through the tunnel, the Model Ys, everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's doing useful work fully autonomously at the factories, as Ashok was mentioning. The cars drive themselves from end of line to where they're supposed to be picked up by a truck, taken to a customer. And I'm confident that later this year, the first Model Y will drive itself all the way to the customer. From a factory in Boston and here in Fremont, California, I'm confident that from both factories, we'll be able to drive directly to a customer from the factory. Yeah. Literally goes from the end of line and drives themselves to your house.
It's important to note in the factories, we don't have dedicated lanes or anything. People are coming in and out every day, trucks delivering supplies, parts, construction.
People can film it. You can see this from the road. Like it's not covered.
Exactly.
And there's videos, people take videos online. And anyone who wants to just drive past our Fremont factory and see the autonomous cars driving themselves. Yeah, and they drive themselves and they put themselves in the exact right spot to be picked up.
The logistics yard is right there in the open. We don't move it to another lane.
But they go to a specific spot. So that's just a routine, everyday thing now.
Great, thank you very much. The next question is, can you please provide an update on the Unboxed method and how that is progressing?
Sure. It's progressing, absolutely. It is the basis for our SUPERCUT manufacturing process. It's really what we changed in order to allow the low cost of production and also get the super high levels of automation. Really, levels of automation that are unheard of in vehicle manufacturing scale. When you see it produced, you'll think of in terms of it's how a car has been built for 100 years. It's really something we've changed. In the past year, we've been focusing on a lot of key development areas, like marrying these large sub-assemblies together in a precise way, in an accurate way. We've also de-risked things like corrosion of uncoated aluminum structures, the sealing across the seams of the vehicle, and when you assemble components. We've even done early crash testing and proven that it's going to be just as safe as every other car we build. And so, with all that combined, we go into the builds we have at the end of this quarter for the SUPERCUT product. That's the next big test of full-scale integration of the Unboxed process. And yeah, that's kind of where we are. So you'll see them in test and on the test roads. And
yeah, and although the line won't be at this rate, this is a revolutionary production system. Unboxing sounds like when you get your phone,
you open it up.
You have a pleasant experience when you take your phone out of the box. But this is much more revolutionary than that. This is a profound reimagining of how to make cars in the first place. No car is made like this anywhere in the world. The factory is the product as much as the car is the product. So it's really just the first principles approach to manufacturing that will ultimately allow us, I think, I'm confident ultimately it'll allow us to achieve a cycle time, meaning a unit every 5 seconds or less, off a single line.
And we want to incorporate some of these for testing it into our existing production lines as well.
This is something I've been thinking about for a long time, and it's not a crazy thing. A car every 5 seconds may sound like it's coming out like bullets, but actually it's coming out at walking speed.
Like a meter a second.
We're still far away from caring about the aerodynamic drag of the manufacturing line. Because you're still at 3 miles an hour type of thing.
We live doesn't make up.
Every 5 seconds sounds crazy, but it's 3 miles an hour. What we're talking about. You can run away from it, basically. But that's still by far the fastest line on Earth. We're the fastest, right?
I would think so.
We think we're the fastest at 33 seconds in our factory. This would be 6 times faster or 7 times faster. Yeah, it'll be slower than that at first. But the point is that, like, when you fully optimize the design and operation of the next generation factory that we're building right now, a 5-second cycle time or less is the design is capable of it. When you go through a radical new architecture, you go from being like an A, and I'd say like probably China in particular is an A plus on a moderately an advanced but still traditional car production system. They're really doing about as good as possible to do within a conventional scenario. So trying to get much below the sort of below like 30 seconds, extremely difficult. But if not, and you start getting into sort of impossible where you have to be faster than a human could possibly move. So then the autonomous line really just needs to be robots moving really fast, and that's where you get to sub 5 seconds. But we'll start with getting a C in a new architecture, but the potential is there over time to move that up to an A plus within an A plus architecture.
Great, thank you very much. The next question is, how is Tesla positioning itself to flexibly adapt to global economic risks in the form of tariffs, political biases, etc.?
As Elon said, we've been supply chain team been at it for a while. We continue to mitigate global economic risks by regionalizing part supply near factories in North America, Berlin, and Shanghai. For example, in North America, our high volume vehicle programs have over 85% North America content, and Shanghai vehicles have over 95% local content. Berlin has similar levels of regionalization as North America when you exclude the battery, and we are working on regionalizing the battery as well. This is a pre-pandemic strategy that we accelerated post-pandemic through supply diversification, vertical integration, advanced analytics, and local partnerships to ensure supply chain resilience and production stability. Having said that, we are not 100% insulated, and these tariff risks are higher on our low volume platforms than the high volume ones.
In fact, there's no more vertically integrated car company than Tesla. We're the most vertically integrated car company since Henry Ford back in the day when they were mining iron and growing rubber trees. We're not growing rubber trees and mining iron yet, but we have built a lithium refinery in South Texas. It's the biggest lithium refinery outside of China, I think. We've got space to expand it if we need to build more. And then we've got the cathode refinery in Austin next to the Gigafactory. We've got to figure out what to do about the anode. It's an ongoing subject of discussion. The best of all possible worlds would be figuring out how to have no anode. Best anode, best part being no part. That's the dream of the lithium batteries, to not have an anode. Either way, we've got to have the anode, the cathode, and the lithium, and the electrolytes, and the separator to make a cell. But there's no other car company that is building lithium refineries and cathode refineries. We're ridiculously vertically integrated. and thus are best positioned to protect against supply chain disruptions.
Yeah.
Thanks. Lonnie, do you want to talk about the progress in the front?
Yeah, certainly for our in-house cells, we've multi-sourced every component. We have every part coming from at least 2 different countries of origin, which is that we started this, the supply chain team and the engineering team worked together on this for the last couple of years to put that together. It's not something we did in a couple of months. This is years of work. So we're in a good position to take advantage of that. The insourcing of lithium and cathode, they're the 2 most critical parts of the battery. We're totally insulated from
Oil.
But they need to be in operation once they're running.
We also make our own cells, by the way. You make the anode, the cathode, the lithium, the electrolyte separator, the can, and then you got to put all that together in the cell factory. There are entire companies that produce cells, but they don't do the other stuff. They don't refine lithium or the cathode or. So our cell production is going quite well. We're currently the lowest cost per kilowatt hour in North America. But we have the lowest cost per kilowatt hour. The Tesla cell is the most competitive cell for a kilowatt hour put into a car. Because the Tesla cell is lower cost than the supplier cell.
Yeah, and the plan this year is to really build off that base. Getting to lowest cost is the hardest challenge for cell manufacturing. It's relatively easy to build a flashy product that does one thing well. To build something at high volume and low cost is super difficult. Like using that as a base to build off and add performance in different areas for new products coming out.
Yeah, to Elon's point, there's a lot of advantages for regionalization. The most important thing is we're not tying up working capital for 6 to 8 weeks on the ocean. If there's a design change, then everything that's in transit basically has to be scrapped. Port disruptions can be very expensive because slight disconnects can shut down production. Your only option is costly air expedite. It also gives us resilience in supply chain. If one region is down, we can bridge with others. It's more work to set up in the beginning, but it's critical to have when the need arises. Having said that, it's unrealistic to assume 100% regionalization across the board for specialized areas such as semiconductors. In such cases, our team works very closely with our partners to ensure we have strategic banks in place and a disruption doesn't impact production while we stand up the regional manufacturing for that particular commodity.
And the rest of the vehicle, like the cells, we're also heavily vertically integrated. Same thing with plastics, but it doesn't mean we're not exposed. We do have some areas where we use rare earth magnets. We've been working for years to find alternative sources and bring those up. As we've mentioned in the past, we're working on our ferrite numbers for some time. As Karan said, with our heavy regionalization percentages, we're definitely the lowest exposed to this, but we're not completely immune.
Similarly related, on the battery side, does Tesla still have a battery supply constraint as noted on the Q4 call? And does that change with tariffs?
This is Karan. We've been working very hard to expand battery cell production in the US, both with vendors and what Bonnie mentioned earlier with the 4680 program. And we're also working on moving the upstream supply chain for battery cells to the United States for several years. And that strategy is really starting to pay off now. As it stands right now, we're not constrained on battery cell supply for vehicles. The recent tariffs do pose some challenges to Tesla Energy, but it's something we've been anticipating and we should be able to resolve in a timely fashion. We actually have a plan. We also have some other sources coming online to supplement the shortfall. And then, of course, we have the L3 production that's happening in-house. We have a slight disconnect of aligning the right cells with the right packs. So that's the little bit of puzzle that we have to solve internally. But as far as cells go, there's no shortage.
Great. The next question is, did Tesla experience any meaningful changes in order inflow rate in Q1 relating to all of the rumors of brand damage?
In Q1, as mentioned earlier, we took the best-selling car of the last 2 years and ramped up all 4 of our global factories. And in less than 8 weeks, we've already gone to the rate of our previous Model Ys in the factories. So just kudos again to the team for the great job. Despite the economic strain and negative articles that in California in Q1, Tesla remained the best-selling car, not just EV. And additionally, we had a record number of test drives globally in Q1 as well. So interest remains high. And so right now, we continue to see good interest still in the vehicle.
Tesla is not immune to the macro demand for cars. When there is economic uncertainty, people generally want to pause on doing a major capital purchase like a car. But as far as absent macro issues, we don't see any reduction in demand.
Correct. And that's where we continue to focus on affordability. And it's a fundamental focus there.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you, guys. And the next question is, regarding the Tesla Optimus pilot line, could you confirm if it is currently operational? What is the current production rate of Optimus bots per week? Additionally, how might the recent tariffs impact the scalability of this production line moving forward?
No, Optimus is still very much a development program. It's not a large volume production. This year, we do expect to make thousands of Optimus robots, but most of that production is going to be at the end of the year. Almost everything in Optimus is new. There's not an existing supply chain for the motors, gearboxes, electronics, actuators, really anything Optimus, apart from the AI for Tesla, which is the same as the one in the car. When you have a new complex manufactured product, it'll move as fast as the slowest and least lucky component. As a first order approximation, there's 10,000 unique things. So that's why anyone who tells you they can predict with precision the production ramp of a truly new product doesn't know what they're talking about. It is literally impossible. So you go through this series of constraints where it's like this part's the limiting factor, now that part's the limiting factor, now this part's the limiting factor, and multiply that by 1,000, basically. And then the rate of the production ramp is decided by how quickly you can solve each of those problems. Optimus was affected by the magnet issue from China because the Optimus actuators in the arm use permanent magnets. Tesla as a whole does not need to use permanent magnets. But when something is volume constrained, like an arm of the robot, then you want to make the motors as small as possible. So we did design in permanent magnets for those motors, and those were affected by the supply chain, by China requiring an export license to send out any rare earth magnets. We're working through that with China. Hopefully we'll get a license to use the rare earth magnets. China wants assurances that these are not used for military purposes, which obviously they're not. They're just going into a humanoid robot. So it's not a weapon system. But that is an example of a challenge there. But I'm confident we'll overcome these issues, and we'll, by the end of this year, have thousands of Optimus robots.
Great. Thank you very much. The last question we already covered earlier, whether robo-taxi was still on track for this year. With that, we can move on to analyst questions. The first question is from Pierre at New Street. Pierre, please unmute yourself.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yeah.
That's great. So I'm super excited to hear robo-taxi and Optimus becoming the very tangible future for Tesla. But I have a question on current auto business. And when I look back a few years ago, I really saw it as being the iPhone of cars, a new product, completely reinvented, very different user experience, vastly superior, impossible to match for traditional competitors. For the iPhone, it resulted in the high end of the smartphone market quadrupling in size and Apple taking 60% market share. When you look at the Model 3 and the Model Y today, I think they are still vastly superior to any other cars. I wonder why they've taken about 15% of their addressable market and not more. Why are there so many people still buying BMWs and Mercedes, knowing that the Model 3 and the Model Y is out there and available? And I wonder if you're trying to solve that riddle internally, if you understand why, what are these auto buyers who are not buying a Model 3 or a Model Y missing? And if you have ideas of things you could do to address that, maybe there is enormous value left on the table.
In the future, most people are not going to buy cars. To continue with your phone metaphor, you can remember the days of the flip phones when there was 100 different flip phone designs. The mistake that manufacturers made was to try to make many different variants of a flip phone, but which was a mistake. They should have made the iPhone. Everyone's going to want a smartphone, but when the iPhone came out, I was like, wow, I can't believe these guys are not reacting as though this is death. But they didn't. They kept making variants of flip phones. Nokia, I think at one point was the most valuable company in the world or close to it, but they kept making flip phones. They're trying to find another market niche. Nope, they just want a super intelligent phone that can do everything. Just one. I said this many years ago. In the future, buying a gasoline car that is not autonomous will be like riding a horse while using a flip phone. Some people still do it, but it's rare.
Great. Thank you. The next question comes from Emmanuel Rosner at Wolf. Emmanuel, please unmute yourself.
Great. Thanks for taking my question. So, Elon, the public version of the FSD software still has a decent amount of intermittent human interventions required. What's still required for the software to get to a level where it doesn't need to be supervised? And I'm asking that in the context of the June launch being in the next couple of months. What still needs to happen?
And we are working on a number of items. We are aware of the interventions happening in the public bills, and that's why we are hardcore burning it down. And really just picking some initial launch city helps us focus on like solving all the issues that you face here. For example, focusing on Austin, we're not solving all the issues that customers in Boston or somewhere else might face. And then here we just have a big list of all the issues, just burn it down. And that's what the team is working on, along with other like redundancy issues. For example, if one of the computers goes down right now in the customer fleet, it would throw the red hands and ask you to take over, but we don't want that kind of situation. So you're solving both like the reliability issues of the autonomy software and also the reliability issues of the system software together for Austin.
Yeah, we just worked through a long tail of unusual interventions. And these are really very rare. Like as I was saying earlier, you have intervention every 10,000 miles. That's a lot of driving you got to do to even find one case where that happens.
Yeah, and some interventions are happening due to systematic missing functionality. For example, for handling emergency vehicles correctly, the customer-facing versions don't have audio input, but the version in Austin will have audio input.
Okay, but would you have remote operators, for example?
I mean, every now and then, if a car gets stuck, someone will unblock it. We tend towards more safety, even if it gets stuck every now and then. We do have remote support, but it's not required for safe operation. If anything, it's just required for more availability.
Great. Our next question comes from Edison at Deutsche Bank.
Hi, thank you very much for the question. I want to ask about the Optimus supply chain going forward. You mentioned very fast ramp up. What do you envision that supply chain looking like? Is it going to require many more suppliers to be in the US now because of the tariffs? What does one think about what needs to happen there?
We have to see how things settle out. I don't know yet.
Right.
I mean, so some things we're doing, as we've already talked about, which is that we've already taken tremendous steps to localize our supply chain. I think we're more localized than any other manufacturer, and we have a lot of things underway that to increase the localization to reduce supply chain risk associated with geopolitical uncertainty.
Did you have a follow-up?
Yeah, wanted to come back to the robo-taxi then. Do you have a sense of how big the scale will be initially and how that might ramp up? I know you're targeting millions of vehicles in the second half of next year. Initially at launch, how many vehicles would be reasonable? And is it going to be as simple as if one goes to Austin, let's say in late June or July, you'll be able to request?
And we're still debating the exact number to start off on day one, but maybe 10 or 20 vehicles. Watch it carefully, then scale it up rapidly after that. We want to make sure we're paying very close attention the first time. End of June, we'll fly, just go to Austin and order a Tesla autonomous drive.
Great. The next question comes from George at Canaccord.
Hi, thank you for taking my question. It has to do with FSD pricing. Can we envision when you launch unsupervised FSD that there could be a multi-tiered pricing approach to unsupervised versus supervised, similar to what you did with autopilot versus FSD in the past? Thank you.
This is something we've been thinking about for people who have been using FSD. They think given the current pricing is too cheap because for $99, you're basically getting a personal show.
Yeah, I mean, we do need to give people more time if they want to look at, like a key breakpoint is, can you read your text messages or not?
Yes.
Can you write a text message or not? People are doing this with autonomous cars all the time. Drive down the highway and you'll see people texting while driving, doing 80 miles an hour, putting on makeup, doing their hair with the mirror down, and texting and driving at 80 miles an hour. This is a common occurrence. fuel, eating lunch, you name it, shaving. Right now, the car is very insistent that you pay attention to the road, which reduces the value somewhat because it's very rigorous about you paying attention to the road. We'll gradually lighten up on that every few weeks or every month. We'll relax that a little bit so you can be more able to do things you want to do and not have the car demand your rigid attention. So that value, it'll really be profound when you can basically do whatever you want, including sleep. That $99 is going to seem like the best $99 you've ever spent in your life.
Great. And George, did you have a follow-up?
My follow-up is about geographic expansion. Just maybe discuss additional markets. There's been some news around India recently that you could launch this year and next. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, we've been working on getting into India. India is a very hot market. And the current tariff structure with India is that any car which we send in is subject to 70% tariff. Also like a 30% luxury tax on it. So the same car we're sending is like 100% more expensive. That creates a lot of anxiety. People feel, okay, they're paying too much for the car. And by the way, we're not getting the money. The local government is. That's why we've been very careful trying to figure out the right time. It's a great market to enter because India has a big middle class, which we want to tap in. But these things create a little bit of tension, which we're trying to work around.
Great. Thank you so much. The next question comes from Adam Jonas at Morgan Stanley. We can't hear you, Adam. Maybe we'll put you back in the queue and move to Colin Lang from Wells Fargo. Colin, please unmute yourself.
Oh, great. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. You're still sticking with the vision-only approach. A lot of autonomous people still have concerns about sun glare, fog, and dust. Any color on how you anticipate getting around those issues? Because my understanding, it blinds the camera when you get glare and stuff.
Actually, it does not blind the camera. We use an approach which is direct photon count. So when you see a processed image, the image that goes from the silicon photon counter goes through a digital signal processor or image signal processor, that's normally what happens. Then the image that you see looks all washed out because if you point the camera at the sun, the post-processing of the photon counting washes things out. It actually adds noise. A big breakthrough we made some time ago was to go with direct photon counting and bypass the image signal processor. Then you can drive pretty much straight at the sun. You can also see in what appears to be the blackest of night. And fog we can see as well as people, probably slightly better than the average person.
So the camera is able to see when there's direct glare on it. I'm a little surprised by that.
Yeah.
Okay. And then just there were media reports the other day that the affordable model was delayed. Those reports also talked about it being more of a cheaper version of the Model Y. Any color on what we should expect? Is it a cheaper version of the Model Y or is it actually a design change?
So I think Lars covered it in answering one of the say.com questions. The real thing which we are trying to focus on is affordability. And using our existing lines, and there's always limitations when you're using existing lines as to how many different form factors can you bring to. So that's the way I would say you should think about it.
Yeah, and I think I said this before in other calls. With the recent upgrades to the Model 3 and the Model Y platforms, we made some pretty great cars at pretty great prices, and we added a bunch of features. I think it's easy to consider that moving forward, Tesla doesn't make bad cars, and our intent is not to make a car that is any worse than any car we've ever produced in the past. And the models that come out in the next months will be built on our lines and will resemble in form and shape the cars we currently make. The key is that they'll be affordable and you'll be able to buy one.
Great. We might have time for one last question. Adam, we'll try your audio again. You want to try to unmute yourself, Adam? Unfortunately, still not working.
Sorry.
Oh, there you go.
Sorry, guys. Technology.
Go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, hi. In the February 28th Joe Rogan interview, Elon, you advocated for a ramp in tariffs to give people time to adjust. Otherwise, you said the system would break and bad things would happen. So are things breaking yet? And if the tariffs, as announced, remain in place, when would things start breaking?
At the risk of stating the obvious, I'm one of many advisors to the president. I'm not the president. I've made my opinion clear to the president. Other people made their opinion clear to the president. He talks to many people, and he makes his decision. I'm hopeful that the president will observe whether my predictions are more accurate than the predictions of others, and perhaps weigh my advice differently in the future. We shall see. I'm an advocate of predictable tariff structures, and generally I'm an advocate for free trade and lower tariffs. Now, one does need to take a look at if some country is doing something predatory with tariffs or is providing extreme support for, if a government is providing extreme financial support for a particular industry, you have to do something to counteract that. I think that's on a case-by-case basis strategically. The president is the elected representative of the people and is fully within his rights to do what he would like to do.
Okay, Elon, I respect that. Just as a follow-up, between China and the United States, who, in your opinion, is further ahead on the development of physical AI, specifically on humanoids and drones? I'd be interested. And is it even close?
I think you know the answer on drones. A friend of mine, Naval, made this posted on X. I reposted it. A prophetic statement. Any country that cannot manufacture its own drones is doomed to be the vassal state of any country that can. America cannot currently manufacture its own drones. China manufactures about 70% of all drones. If you look at the total supply chain, almost 100% of drones have a supply chain dependency on China. So China is in a very strong position, and we need to shift more of our people and resources to manufacturing, because this is I have a lot of respect for China, because I think China is amazing actually, but the United States does not have such a severe dependency on China for drones and be unable to make them unless China gives us the parts, which is currently the situation. With respect to humanoid robots, I don't think there's any company in any country that can match Tesla. Tesla and SpaceX are number one. I'm a little concerned that on the leaderboard, ranks 2 through 10 will be Chinese companies.
I think that's all the time we have for today. We appreciate all your questions and look forward to talking to you next quarter. Thank you and goodbye.